All right. This is Jordan, otherwise known as DJ Tall Guy from 90.3 The Core, and today I'm joined by La Dispute. So why don't you guys introduce yourselves and say what you do for the band?
My name is also Jordan, and I sing, and I am not a tall guy.
My name is also Brad, and I play drums.
You're like a medium height guy.
So to start off, I just wanted to ask how the tour was going so far. This is like your fifth or sixth night, I think, and I wanted to know how the cities have been, how the shows have been received, and everything, and how much fun you've been having on this tour so far.
Sure. Yeah, it's pretty early on, but it's been very good. All the shows have been super fun and energetic and well attended, I think, for the most part. I know that's true across the board. All the bands are awesome. We get to watch two really amazing bands play every day. It's been a lot of fun. We've been playing new songs for the first time, which is also exciting. So all in all, having a very good time.
Also, I wanted to ask what it's been like now being a part of the Epitaph lineup. I was reading an interview that you did with Rolling Stone, and you said you were looking at all the gold records, saying like, holy fuck, we're a part of this lineup now. And like, Epitaph is personally one of my favorite labels as well. So I was wondering what it's been like being a part of that roster now.
It's been very cool. Everyone at Epitaph has been fantastic from day one. Super accommodating, and it was pretty apparent early on that they had our best interests in mind, and that was
enthusiastic. So that's nice.
Yeah, that was a big thing. That was, I think, really the selling point for us, that they felt very passionate about what we do, and we've always been pretty careful about who we've decided to collaborate with and work with, because we're pretty particular, and they were very open about accommodating those particularities, and that was very encouraging. And then, yeah, obviously to be a part of Epitaph's roster is very humbling, to walk the halls of the office and, like you said, see all the gold records on the wall. And It's funny, when we first started having conversations, it was like I could like find signposts in Epitaph's roster for my entire history as a person interested in punk music, like dating back to hearing Rancid for the first time, but then Hot Water Music, and then getting older and hearing Nick Cave for the first time and all the anti-record stuff, and then also to be a part of the label that has now so many of our peers and friends is very cool. So just all in all, it's been a very good experience. I'm hogging the microphone. You got anything to add, Bradley?
That's great.
You want me to hog the
All right, so now I wanted to ask some more about the new record and everything. It was really just such a heel turn in possibly one of the best ways possible. Like, I did not understand the art at first at all, and I think that's why I enjoyed it so much, because it just raised so many questions that needed answers, at least in my opinion. And so to start off with the record, I wanted to ask what it was like. You guys did the last record with Will Yip, and I wanted to ask because worked with so many other great artists like Code Orange, Balance and Composure, Adventures, Defeater, and like what his help on the production, in addition to what you guys did for your record, like how that played into what was eventually the final product.
You feel that?
You want me to do this one? I remember having a conversation with Will a few months before even about him doing another record after Rooms. So Rooms was a lot more stripped back, and we kind of wanted a more straightforward vibe all across the board. I think even for Jordan, but especially musically. But this record we wanted to do sort of the opposite. So heavily layered musically, but also very dynamic. So I don't know. We had to approach it. He needed to be on board from the get-go. And when I told him that we wanted to go in that direction, he just immediately said, dude, I'm all in. Let's do this. And from then, he really was all in. Like, he worked his ass off and, you know, worked really long days with us first, getting all the pieces right musically, and then worked really hard with Jordan after the fact too. So I don't know, Will's very malleable, and like, he can see your vision with you, and he just joins the team. And I think that's what's one of Will's enormous strengths, and probably why, every record he does is great, because he sees the band's vision and only helps it, So I'm sure you have more to add.
No, that's exactly what I would say. I think that Will is very passionate and dedicated and passionate about the bands that he chooses to work with. So that was from day one on both records that we did. But I think on this record in particular, because there were so many new things we wanted to try, that was really exciting for Will from an engineering standpoint, because he's also an enormous nerd when it comes to capturing sounds and trying new things, which works well with us because we're all kind of that same way. So yeah, he was particularly, I think, excited about trying to find new ways to capture the ideas we had.
Continuing off that, I wanted to ask, what inspired all these new ideas? You took a very much, more, I guess, post-rocky approach where the songs were more weaving and building and crashing and then seeping into one another so fluidly. This album just flew. Not like a plane, more like a river. Everything went in and out of one another perfectly. And I wanted to know what inspired kind of this more progressive move for the sound.
Yeah, I think maybe this is a good one for you to talk about too. Part of it was, so we wrote for 2 months after taking quite a bit of time off from writing, and struggled a lot trying to get into a groove, trying to figure out what direction we ought to move in. And I think partly we were overanalyzing things, and maybe trying a bit too hard to work in the same mode that we did when we made Rooms of the House. And after 2 months of trying and failing, we had a very honest conversation about what was and wasn't working, and about what we all envisioned going forward, and sort of hit the reset button. And then I think in a lot of ways moved more by instinct than we had, and kind of let the songs develop more naturally, more organically on their own. And that was a big part of what I think created that feeling throughout the record, was just kind of moving by instinct, going piece to piece and seeing what happened after one thing after the other. So that, I think, was a big part of what gave it that kind of flow.
Just to add, most of the songs are written in order as they appear on the record, I think -2, so that probably has a lot to do with it. Yeah.
And another thing, I thought the whole idea of using the road that you would drive back and forth between for your hometown and your partner's hometown was a really cool, a story vehicle. That's what I'm looking for. So kind of how all the things that you saw happened along that road and inspired all these different stories to be told on the record. And I wanted to ask a little more about that, how Fulton Street inspired all these songs and everything.
Partly it was repetition. So I spent a lot of time driving that stretch of road in the time between finishing Rooms of the House and wrapping up a tour cycle for that and starting to write this one. So the stories that appear on the record were ones that I was regularly reminded of throughout the course of my week. So it just kind of got burned into my brain, which has always kind of been the process by which stories from our hometown and from our neighborhoods in my life have become the structure of our records. But I had a lot more ideas, and I think it was kind of cool how the change in the writing process informed how I would take those stories and fit them into the record. I didn't know the whole time that I would be kind of telling that story as it went along, but when we started to write the record that way, all the chafe kind of blew away, and then it made sense for me to approach the record kind of that same way. You said a river, but it feels kind of like a road to me,
Yeah.
So Yeah, it like sort of, I had all these ideas that appeared along this road, and then when we started to write the record in this fashion, it became apparent that the structure, the story itself, the narrative should appear as kind of this long, wide, panoramic shot of that area. So it all kind of worked somewhat serendipitously in the end.
All right, and lastly, I wanted to ask about all the art that came with this record, the whole like neon forest kind of inspiration that happened, and the game as well that you guys put out. I said before I was playing it this morning, it's just really cool how the landscape would change as the song went on, and it's just, I've never seen another band do something like that, so I was wondering where you guys got that idea from to do like a moving game with the album.
Well, like as far as the artwork goes, again, when we made that shift in the process, part of what we envisioned, part of what we talked about was writing a record that was kind of proggy, for lack of a better term, that was more conceptual, but we sort of wanted to toy with conceptions of reality. So even on the record, lyrically, there's these moments where you get transported to another time, a different place. So there's playing with kind of the rules of time and space, which sort of, I think, was the avenue for approaching the art that way too, to make it less grounded in reality and more science fiction feeling. As far as the video goes,
That was a lot of Adam.
it sort of happened by accident. So we decided that when we rolled the record out, we wanted to work with different animators, and we wanted to kind of try to capture that feeling of just left of center from reality visually too. So we approached some people whose art we enjoyed, and one of the people we approached was this dude Juice Egermont, who ended up making the video. So he's a video game animator, and we approached him about animating a video, and through the back and forth that occurred between him and our bass player Adam, we sort of eventually shifted from visual, like animating something in the style of a video game, to just making a video game. And then somewhere along the line, that fused into how we would first allow people to stream the record. But it kind of, I think, it like developed organically in a back and forth. It wasn't something we had in our brains before we approached him. It just kind of happened that way, where we were like, let's do a video. And he was like, well, maybe we could do a video game. And then it was like, well, maybe instead of doing your typical like lyric video introduction to the record to stream it, we'd do something that was a bit more interactive. And it turned out great.
Yeah, it's cool.
I'd love to take credit for it, but we had almost nothing to do. Well, Adam, our bass player, and Kirk, our manager, and Juice put a lot of work into it. Yeah.
Very cool.
So I think that's all we had really to ask.
Cool.
Just a quick in and out.
Yeah, appreciate it.
And so this is DJ Tolgar from 90.3 The Core signing out.
It's